When history looks back, it may say that the Octatrack was Elektron's most influential box. But for me, the Monomachine was their crowning achievement. And after the open, I'll tell you exactly why I'm thinking about selling it. Hi, I'm Davey from MKDVB. Now, the Monomachine is one of the most unique sounding instruments I've ever come across. If you read synth forums, you'll eventually read posts saying that digital synths are nothing more than VSTs in a box and how even analog synths can be replaced with software these days. I'm not here to debate hardware versus software or analog versus digital or physical versus soft synths, right? But I will say, if you're thinking about replacing the Monomachine with the VST, good luck to you. Of all the synths I've owned, the Monomachine is probably the least replaceable. I mean, I love my Matriarch, but I don't love changing patches on it, like with all those patch cables, or lugging it out of the house. So when I need that sound, I usually sub in my Sequential Pro 3, right? And depending on the patch, it gets me about 70 to 90% of the way there. In fact, I just played a live set where I subbed out all of the Matriarch sounds with the Pro 3. The Monomachine? I honestly haven't got a clue how I would sub out a sound like this. Someone asked me how I made this patch, and I honestly have no idea. That was always part of the magic for me with the Monomachine, right? Sometimes it felt more like a collaborator than a tool or an instrument. And in some ways that was a blessing, and in other ways, it's kind of part of the reason why it may get sold. It led me places I never would have gone without it, like this track right here. First, let's talk about why I think it's such an awesome box in the first place. Now, I've talked about how unique it is, but it's kind of hard to pinpoint what exactly about the Monomachine makes it so awesome. I mean, if you took the elements of it by itself, like the synth engines or the sequencer or the effects, you know, none of those by themselves are really all that special. But something just really magical happens when you combine them into that silver box along with some other really cool features. The Monomachine has the best interface of any Elektron box I've played, and I have played all of the big ones. Don't believe the hype about menu diving. All of your major controls are literally at the most just one button press away. Because they've streamlined the controls that they give you for all the different synth engines, there's not really any menu diving. So all that means you start building up tracks really quickly, and if you want to dive into the deeper functions later, you can. On the other hand, when I got my first Octatrack, it took me hours to literally just change the MIDI channel. Now let's talk about the effects. If you were to listen to like the reverb or the phaser or the chorus, like just by itself, you probably wouldn't be, that impressed with it. But somehow it all comes together in this box and makes sense. Not only that, each track gets its own delay effect with more options than you see on many delay pedals even, right? And all of those options can be modulated so you can get sounds like this. These days, most Elektron boxes have the delay and the reverb and the chorus on its own master send channel, right? Which means that all of the tracks have to get sent to that channel for that effect. And even though in some cases in isolation it might sound better, especially that reverb sounds better, it's actually way more limiting with what you can accomplish sound design wise. Now, besides the delay, the Monomachine effects have to be set up like a synth engine. So each effect that you want to use takes up a separate track. What that allows you to do is to pair a synth engine, which by itself doesn't sound all that special, with a neighboring effects track and then you can start doing modulation and parameter locks to start manipulating both the effects and the synth engine. And that's where the sounds really come to life. Oh man, we gotta talk about that arpeggiator, right? I mean, the older Elektron boxes, right, the Monomachine and the machine drum, have their sequencers aren't quite as advanced as kind of the newer analog series or the Digi series. But one trick that they did have up their sleeve was that arpeggiator, which I've heard kind of referenced to as a sequencer within a sequencer. And don't get me wrong, right? The Elektron boxes, the new ones still have a really, really fully featured arpeggiator, but they're missing the combination of that random with the SID mode, right? And with the SID mode and that random kind of locked in together, you could really add some unpredictable variations to your sequences. It's a feature I really wish Elektron would bring back with their newer boxes. So with all that, do you really think I should sell it? It always felt a little bit uncontrollable to me, like too uncontrollable for me. I'm sure Sophie and Techer dudes had total mastery over the Monomachine, but I never got close to that level because I guess I didn't focus on it, right? I had other gear that I was interested in and just never focused on the Monomachine. For sure, I made some really cool sounds with it, but those always involved a lot of parameter locks and a lot of luck. Basically, I couldn't replicate it, right? So if I did something kind of stupid, like switch snapshots without saving mine first, then I would lose all of my work, right? Here's a kit that I loved and lost because I switched over to check out the Auditor snapshots before saving mine. The Monomachine always dragged me into a beat, almost without fail. I'd start off wanting to make an ambient track and somehow wind up in synth pop techno land. The Monomachine, as cool as it is, simply just, it didn't fit into my style, which is kind of more of like an organic vibe, analog, warm, whatever. I do like there to be some edge and some noisiness in there, but maybe a more organic sounding noise versus kind of like the digital harsh sounding edge that the Monomachine brought. So if I had pre-existing tracks and was feeling guilty because the Monomachine had been sitting around unused for 2 months, I'd have to try to force it in because oftentimes it wouldn't really fit, right? And then even after I force it in, come mixed down, more often than not, I would basically just wind up muting the Monomachine tracks anyways because it just didn't really fit my style. These days, my time is much more limited, so I need to be more productive and I need tools that fit my style and my workflow. But hey, let's get real. The main reason I sold it, $3,000. When a local synth head reached out to me and asked if I would sell him the Monomachine for that amount because he wanted that tone, that edge in his industrial music, it was an easy decision for me. By the end there, the Monomachine was basically just a glorified drum machine and I wasn't really using it that much. Even though I have an emotional attachment to it, right? And it's a synth that I love that box. When push comes to shove, I'm not a synth collector. For me, synths are meant to be played. So he got that unique Monomachine tone for his industrial music, and I got another Elektron box that suits my style and my workflow way better, plus $2K extra in my pocket. You really can't beat that. Because at the end of the day, the music we make is more powerful than the music gear we consume. So keep on jamming.